was meant to win. I am down and willing, so I will find a way. It took a minute, now it didn't happen right away. When it get hot in the kitchen, you decide to stay. That's how it winners made. Stick a fork in the hater on my dinner plate. I walk into the fire like it's just a bit of flame. I switch my style up, watch the money pile up. I'ma get rich with life.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Clydesdale Media Podcast, where we are highlighting the athletes of the 2024 Legends Masters CrossFit Games. And I have with me none other than legend OG CrossFitter Kyle Ruth. What's going on, man?
I'm not sure I deserve legend status yet. I have some more stuff I want to do before I get legend, but I appreciate that. Also, that intro is sick. I love it.
Yeah, after 5 years, we finally figured out something that worked. Yeah, and I love the music. Like when you find the right song, like the rest of it just comes together.
Yeah, for sure. That was awesome.
So if for people who don't know, Kyle is with TTT. You are a coach. You are the director of education.
Yep.
Is the director of education something new, or have you always been that role?
That's a role I took over in 2021 when we started developing our new courses. So originally Max and I created some educational courses. I worked on our energy system training course in 2014, which we released late 2014, and he created a strength course. Then we kind of collaborated on how, like a program design course. Those were our generation 1 courses. We did that for a long time. Then we shifted to a subscription-based education platform called The Classroom that we ran with from like 2016 to we stopped updating about 2021. And at that point we decided we wanted to go back into the long form course creation mode. And so I took over as director of education. So that's been my, but I wouldn't call it the main thing. My main thing is still coaching athletes. And I think anybody who's going to educate people about how to coach people in the CrossFit space or in the competitive space needs to also have a foot in the door in coaching. And, that's still my main thing. But yeah, it's been a good run. We've now released our movement course. We did that first. And that's more like assessment, and how to improve people's movement. One of the basic foundations of sport. And then we released that in January of 2022. And then in December of 2023, we released our coaching strength course, which is I would say probably the best strength education information that exists in the space.
So this is specifically for coaches. Yes,
specifically for coaches. And even though it's not necessarily created specifically for CrossFit, we use our, I've been coaching competitive CrossFitters for 12 or 13 years now. So we use our Tilt. Max Elhag, the owner of Training Think Tank, coached multiple podium games athletes. That's if you go on there, you can download the game day fueling guide if you want. We actually just launched that. But if you go into education, our coaching movement, coaching strength, and coaching conditioning courses are those are our flagship courses. And basically that's that's us just pouring all of our systems into an education platform. It's not just information. The biggest thing that we try to do is teach people how we approach the program design process. So they're, I think they're both pretty cool. And we're currently working on the conditioning course, although that's taken a little bit of a backseat since we just moved into our new facility. Literally had our first class on Friday. So it took a little bit of a backseat for the last couple of weeks, but that's what I'll be working on outside of prepping for the CrossFit Games.
How long does one of these classes take to get through?
Well, the coaching movement course has, I believe, 13 or 14 hours of video content and a 200-page manual. The coaching strength course has a 300-page manual, and it's over 20 plus hours of video content that includes everything from how do you onboard a new client to Alexis Raptis's case study from her games prep, the strength pieces from her games prep last year for the 2023 CrossFit Games. I mean, they're in depth.
That is just that aspect alone would make some people want to jump in and check that out.
Yeah, there's a lot more to it than that as well. Cause I know a lot of people don't work with elite athletes. And so, they're built so that it provides a foundation education for people that are, say you've been just coaching CrossFit for 2 or 3 years, you're a level 1, you're 2 years in, but you want to start learning how to program design. They meet you there, but also we kind of show you underneath the hood a little bit. If you're working with if you, ever are curious, what does a high level athlete's strength program look like? But also at the same time, what you'll see in a high level athlete strength program are a lot of the basics that we discuss all throughout the course. It's always in there. Yeah, there's some more complex elements, but the basics are always there.
It's funny. So Carolyn Prevost is my co-host on Sunday nights, and her and I will have conversations, and it'll come to programming and I get lost so quick. And she just she can see a picture of something Dave put out and piece it together into a full workout.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, what's going on, Rain, man? I can't even keep up.
Well, at some point when you've done this for a really, really long time, you kind of see the trends and you see some of the, the things that stand out, and you can pick out, oh, there, that's a sled. The sled loads can be X, Y, and Z. You can figure out a lot just from a little bit of context clue.
Literally just before we got on, Dave put out clips of the clean ladder.
Yeah, I just saw that actually right before we got on here.
Yeah, she has all the weights already listed out for men and women. And I'm like, how did you get that from Sydney Wells lifting 1 bar?
Yeah, well, you can assume that if you have the weights, you know what the starting loads are going to be, and then from there you can extrapolate what the men's weights are going to be. Yeah, this is what we do.
Yeah. The mind of coaching, and you can learn all about that through your education program.
Yeah, for sure. And I will say at the competitive coaching, when it comes to competitive coaching, when you bring an element of competition in, then people start to really, that's when this type of stuff happens,
So it's been a busy month for TTT.
Yes. Oh,
so
yes.
Just a couple months ago, Travis was it United Performance?
Yes.
There was TTT. Now they are one entity.
Yes. That's actually, I'm wearing my We Are United TTT. This was part of our grand opening that we had on Friday and Saturday this past week, where basically what happened is Training Think Tank. We purchased United Performance from Travis, and now Travis is part co-owner, or I don't know if co-owner, but he has an ownership stake in Training Think Tank. We combined the gyms and we moved from the location where United Performance and Training Think Tank shared a big L-shaped gym. We were in one part of the L, they were in the other part, to just a giant box. And it's all set up to facilitate training everybody from, the elite games athletes, Travis and Alexis and Linda and everybody that trains on site, to people that are just, interested in general fitness. We've expanded the programming options pretty dramatically so that we're even starting to get into things like some high rocks programming and things like that on site. Integrated some nutrition coaching and elements like that we originally Training Think Tank had just for remote athletes. And now we brought it in for, everybody on site. So I think it's been obviously for the community, it's going to be a change, and change is always hard. But at the same time, I think there's so much value add for everybody involved that it's going to be a major positive. But we literally, yes, we just did that. The gym, when I was in there a week ago, Tuesday, was just a pile of equipment. And I stayed home for 2 days because, I'm also prepping for the CrossFit Games. I had a couple training days I did in the garage and just worked at home. And I went back in and it was the thing was done. And it was crazy to see how fast everyone was able to come together to get it done.
It's amazing when you move into a new facility too, how everything looks brand new again.
Yes. Yes, we cleaned all of the equipment thoroughly and all that, but you're 100% right. We even brought the old stall mats over from the other gym because there's basically 2 sections, there's a rig in the middle and then there's one section over here and one section over there. And we filled up one of the sections with the old stall mats, and we cleaned them. But man, they looked new. You couldn't tell the difference between the two sides. So it's been, the biggest difference though is there's climate control in this new facility, and I can tell you the difference between training in the middle of old TTT, which we just called the death zone. It was like right in the middle where neither of the big ass fans could move air. And it was just this humidity dead zone that would get up to like 110, but then with humidity, right? Like it's not like 110 out in Arizona where they might get up to 115, 120. It gets hot. I'm not saying it's not hot, but we have humidity plus the temperature in the middle of that gym, and it was brutal. And training in the new facility with climate control has been like, I don't know. I've never experienced anything like that in my entire CrossFit career.
So in the old place, you could actually train for Fort Worth. You just
Yes.
that dead zone.
Yes, 100%. You could set yourself up as close to Texas as possible, and maybe even a bit like Birmingham. We'll have to see how the weather pans out in a couple of weeks.
Oh, wow. So I know that you have a swimming background. We talked about that last time you were on the show. Get any Olympic coverage in, or have you been too busy?
Of course, I catch it all as the reruns or go back and rewatch. But both my daughters are swimmers, and so there's no way we could get around watching it. They're totally into it. My wife and I, we've watched the Olympics since we were together now, 16, 18 years ago. So it's been like a big part of us just watching the Olympics and stuff. And yeah, so I've watched swimming. I also love watching track and field. I watched Noah Lyles bust out the win recently. That was incredible. There's no way you could have told who won that race. You know what I mean? Like They had to go to the freeze frame. But yeah, it's been great to watch some of the Olympics and also be reminded of how slow I am now.
Yeah, amen to that.
Yep.
Again, I'm older than you are, so like my times are real slow. But that Noah Lyles thing, like I didn't know it was the torso now instead of the head or the foot or the hand. It's first torso to cross the line.
Yeah, we've seen people in CrossFit take advantage of when the chip timer is on their ankle and be able to get that ankle across the finish line a little bit before. And so, they have that little bit of awareness, enough awareness to get that ankle over. For him to have the awareness, and I mean, yes, this is his sport and it's, it's a repetition sport. So obviously he's practiced this, but for him to have the awareness to get that much lean, to get the torso through, that was crazy. It almost looked like he was falling.
Yeah.
When you watch it in real time.
Well, and you saw one of the Jamaican runners throw a leg out, and that's actually throwing your torso back. Like,
yeah. So it's like, that was what maybe used to be a successful finish, but now the finish, if it's the torso, you got to get the lean. It's crazy to see that. I think that level of awareness when they're moving that fast is insane.
Yeah. So are you coaching anybody at the games this year, or just going to help out?
No individuals at the CrossFit Games this year. No teams at the CrossFit Games this year. It's I think last year was actually the first time that I didn't have any individuals or teams competing. But for me, it's actually been, I have to admit, it's been kind of nice to have this period of time just to be able to train. I would say I've just been training, but obviously I have a lot of other things on the plate. But it's been kind of nice to just focus on my training and then helping my athletes build their off-season training, which I actually really like coaching the off-season for people. I also like coaching competitive prep, but there's something about the linearity of good off-season training that really works well with my brain.
So you've been to the games yourself on a team. This is your first time as an individual.
Yeah. I in 2013, I finished 1 point out from qualifying at the Mid-Atlantic Regional. I finished 4th by a point, which still stings to talk about a little bit, even though we're 11 years removed. But yeah, that was that was when I was closest. And then, I was on the team. So in 2020, I had a pretty good season, but they canceled the games, for Masters, obviously. And then 2021, was able to go with a group of my best friends here at Training Think Tank and do that. And then I've been fighting. I think I was like 12th when they took 10, and then like 16th or something last year when they took 10. And so to be able to be in this kind of expanded field, I'm really grateful that they did choose to expand the field. Because once again, I wouldn't be in. I think I finished 25th. So with the smaller 10-person field, I wouldn't have qualified. But I think it's going to make a much better story on game day with the group that they have going this year.
Well, two big things, in my opinion, is that one, everything is videoed and online up till this point, and we know that has its fallacies across the board, right?
For sure.
Two, when you had 10 people at the games, nobody could fall too far. If you had a bad event, you fall 10 spots. That's it.
Yep.
Now you have a 40-person field. You mess up an event, it can make a major difference in the scoreboard.
I think the same can be said for having good events. You know, I've competed in a number of events in the last few years, Masters events. And one of the things that tends to be the hallmarks of the off-season Masters competitions, like Masters Fitness Collective, or I won Wadapalooza Masters in 2022. And the thing has always been that the field isn't that deep. And so it's always been like going, you know, I'll win an event, and then Julian Cerna will win an event, and then I'll win, and then he'll win the next one. It's just who takes a third or a fourth, right? That's what had happened in the past. And in an event like this, that isn't going to be the case, right? There isn't going to, and now granted, there might be some athletes like a Will Morad who can, you know, average first, second, third across this. But for me, a bad event isn't going to be a second place. A bad event's going to be hopefully not a 40th, but you know, it might be in the mid 20s or 30s, depending on, you know, this is a great field. And so any little slip up is going to result in a problem, but that's also a good thing at the top too. So if you are fighting for a podium spot, you know, it allows for some dilution or some separation. If you're really consistent, like a Will Morad kind of athlete who can potentially be a top 5 in every event, what it's going to do is for someone like me who might have, hey, we get a swim and I get a lot of points. And then, you know, we have a couple CrossFit events where I get, you know, 15, and then there's a max lift where I get a whole bunch of points again. He's going to be able to create a bunch of separation between himself and me because he can stay at the top for all of them.
Yeah. Well, and I just had Kevin Jones on, who told me, like, he's going to win the lifting events
for sure.
He's the 40th person in, and he's saying, I had a weird year where I didn't get as much training in, so I'm just going to win the lifting events.
Yeah, those are 100 points.
Right.
Those are 100 points. So right off the bat, if we get two heavy lift events, you know, he's looking at potentially 200 points just straight up, which that's the equivalent of like 10. You know, if you get 20 points for 30th place or something, you know, I haven't seen the scoring system yet, but if you get 10 points for 30th place, that's the equivalent of 10 30th place finishes in 2 events, man. That's a lot of points. So if you do have something that you're an outlier in, this format, the point-based format, rewards you so much more than the online qualifier format where it's 1 point per place.
Yeah. I think it's going to be fun. It's going to make it a lot more interesting than Masters games in the past. Uh-oh. Did we lose you? I think Kyle froze up on us.
Still here.
Okay, there we are. You're back.
We're back. I had a loading screen for a second.
Okay. So yeah, I think it's going to make it a lot more interesting than years past, just with that fluctuation.
Yeah, and I think people is going to make it way more interesting. I hope that the coverage of the actual events is also a little more dialed in than it was last year with the single camera covering the entire field kind of thing.
Well, I think I can guarantee you that it's not an iPhone hanging from the ceiling.
That's great to hear.
And they're bringing in the A team. You're getting Sean Woodland.
Yes.
You're getting Chase Ingram and Tommy Marquez.
No way. That's our media coverage crew.
Yep.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's fantastic to hear. So we've got they're giving the OGs to the OGs.
Yeah, they weren't. Apparently, they weren't good enough for the real games. So the Legends guys gobbled up Sean Woodland to do the play-by-play. I think we broke up again. Man. Yeah, that's going to make it really interesting. If I'm a Masters athlete and I hear Sean Woodland yelling my name, I think I've said it on other interviews, that becomes my ringtone going forward. Just find that clip, download it, and it's my ringtone. So we're just going to hang tight here while Kyle hopefully figures out internet issue that he's having. We were doing really good for about 20 minutes, and then all of a sudden, bam, this goes out. Jay Birch and Corey, what's going on, guys? Our man Corey is doing the TFX qualifiers. That's going to be fun. Jay Birch says CrossFit should put chip timers on the chest rather than the ankle. That would make it pretty interesting. And you can't throw that leg out then. But so many close finishes have come down. Oh, there's Kyle. You're back.
I'm back. I have no idea what's going on. There's no one else on the internet, and it's like the middle of the day.
I was just tap dancing, so.
Oh, you're all good.
So I think we were just talking about points and all that stuff. And so how excited are you going? How many are you taking people with you to the games this year?
Yeah. I mean, given how close Birmingham is to Atlanta, we just mapped it out last night. It's like between 2.5 to 3 hours. So we've got a really good crew coming from the gym. Plus my kids, my parents are going to bring the girls up Thursday evening. So they're going to miss the first day of competition, but then they're going to get to watch Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And they haven't been at a major event that I've done, I don't think ever. Like they didn't get to go to the CrossFit Games because school here starts August 1st. So they didn't get to go when I was on team. And, they've been to MFC. They went to Crash Crucible last year, but they're going to get to come out and actually watch some really high level CrossFit stuff, which they've seen some high level stuff, but nothing like a games level event. And my parents are coming out and we got a lot of friends that are planning on coming. So I think it's going to be I actually think that there's going to be a bigger crowd than people expect. Cause I think that there are 600 Masters athletes competing.
Yeah. I had it about 450, but still.
But then we have teams, right?
Yeah. That's not even, that's just the main event.
Yeah. So there's, I think 600 athletes or so competing in total. And if everybody just brings 2 or 3 people, like it's going to be a crowded event.
I've talked to some that are bringing 50.
Yeah. I don't know if I'll have 50 people in the stands, but given the proximity, we'll have a crew, and I think it'll be pretty good.
Yeah. Anybody in that, like North, South Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, like it's a short trip for them.
It is. It's totally. When they announced that we were in Birmingham, I was actually really excited just because it's a drive instead of a flight, which, that makes travel so much easier. I can stop every hour and get out and shake the legs out, make sure I feel good.
Yeah. I'm actually driving from Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah. How long's the drive for you?
8.
That's not that bad. That's still within the 10-hour window where I would kind of put a limit for myself.
Yeah. And when I drive, I can take a lot more equipment than I can if I'm flying. So if I can do the drive, I'm going to do the drive.
We're bringing the dog. I'm bringing my, I'm bringing Puma.
Wow. Does that help? Like just make you feel more at home at the end of the day, or?
Yeah, we actually brought him to Crash Crucible last year. It's the first time we'd taken him to a competition, and I loved being able to come back to the hotel and chill and hang out with him and, get him up on the couch and sit with him for a while. And yeah, it's just something that, one, having your kids there does the same. At least I've got older kids now. Having kids there's 8 and 12. So they can handle themselves on a trip. There's never really any, the problems that you have. I remember competing at regionals when my oldest was like 1, 2, and 3 years old. And it was a challenge then, but it's a completely different thing now. They're just like, hey, we'll bring the Nintendo Switch, and it's like, hey, you want to play some Switch between events? We'll
Yeah.
bust out some Mario Kart and just, it's like a good way to create some downtime versus I think what used to happen is I would come back and just stress about the events. But now I got some stuff that I get to do between events.
I'm such an overthinker about everything.
Same.
Like when even just doing interviews, like the night before, I'll run the interview through my head. Like I have to find tricks to like shut my head off.
Yeah, I'm very similar. I think that's a common. I think that's actually really common in athletes as well. Having coached, a lot of people in the sport, I think people have a hard time shutting their mind off the night before, or the day before, the hours before, the minutes before they go out to compete.
Are you an athlete that wants to know the events, or are you okay with like being surprised when you get there?
I'm okay with both. I feel like I do a really good job if the events are announced beforehand of going through simulations and rehearsing the events and creating good strategies. And I'm good at creating a strategy and sticking to it. And I think that's probably from my swimming career where, you just have to rehearse you rehearse your flip turn over and over and over. I know exactly how many strokes I'm going to take. So I think there's something to be said that my experience lends me towards that. But at the same time, I've done this long enough and been in enough events where they just like, surprise, we're changing it to this, that I can handle the unknown fairly well. And I know myself pretty well, especially if there's bottlenecks in there, things like pegboards or legless rope climbs, strict handstand pushups where you get muscularly bottlenecked. I know my limits pretty well, and I can ride right up to that limit. I think I get more challenged if they announce like, I don't know if it was really simple, row bar facing burpee. And, it's just announced like 5 rounds, 15 and 15, like I would have no idea how to pace that appropriately. And I would get caught up into racing there. And there's definitely people that are fitter than me at stuff like that. So I would get caught up in the race and probably blow myself up a little bit.
Yeah, I could see that. Off subject, you say when you were a swimmer, you rehearsed flip turns and rehearsed.
Yeah.
How does Alex Walsh do an illegal turn at the Olympics? How many times has she made that turn?
One of the things that I used to do, and I was far from alone, is when you're doing a butterfly or a breaststroke open turn, you have to touch the wall with 2 hands and then you can execute the turn. And one of the things that we would do is we'd practice, coming in and maybe not quite touching the wall with both hands, and that, keeping it as close as you possibly could, because you're always trying to shit. And like, you want to tap the fingertips and go. And I think it's just one of those things that she practiced riding the line as close as she could. People do it in CrossFit all the time. They practice their wall ball where, it's right at the edge where some judges will call it a no rep. Some judges will say it's good. And I think she just practiced riding the line. And that is what it is. That's the cost of trying to ride the edge.
That caught me off guard when she got the disqualification for that.
I saw a frame by frame breakdown, and she it was clearly a valid DQ. Like it wasn't something that should be overturned or anything like that. It was a valid DQ, but at the same time, like when you're trying to shave, when 1/100th or 2/100ths of a second matters, they really do try and shave everything they possibly can. The margins are way tighter in that sport than they are here.
So back to you and Training Think Tank, that you guys are known for strategy and thinking about the breakdowns of every workout. You talk about like, if you have time to strategize, that's great. And sometimes you just don't know how to pace. If you don't have the plan going in, does that make you more worried, more anxious going into an event?
No, because one of the things that I also recognize is that everybody's in the same boat. And the fact that I have spent a lot of time practicing breaking events down and, helping other athletes create strategies, I think I have a little bit of an advantage there, because I can very quickly break down, all right, this should probably take 30 seconds, or this is, toes to bar, it's 50 reps. I know I'm going to be able to do sets of 10 on a 40-second clock or a 30-second clock. Like I know a lot of the components in the sport fairly well. And so I don't think that it doesn't get in my head. I just am more prone to mispacing that way. I think is probably a better way to put it. But if given time with the events, I think a lot of times I can create a strategy that really does maximize my fitness. Doesn't mean I'm going to win by any means, but it'll let me use the fitness that I've got to the best I possibly can.
Do you have expectations going into this year?
You know, I looked back at some of the past Legends workouts, and I was looking at last year. I'm like, okay, there's a swim event that would be a good one for me. There's some max lifts; those would be really good for me. And then I was looking at some of the other events, and I'm like, man, this would be a rough event for me. This one would be a rough event for me. So it's really, really challenging for me to set expectations based on like performance or based on what other people are going to do. So I try not to set my expectations relative to a placement or something like that. I try to think more about setting my expectations based on my own execution and effort. And, at the end of the day, what I want to do is I want to walk away feeling like I did everything I could, both in preparation and on game day, to put out my best. And as long as I've done that, I'm going to be pretty happy with the result. It was a long time ago. In fact, that 2013 year that I referenced, I remember we were driving home and my wife asked if I was disappointed, right? And like, I was like, yeah, of course I'm disappointed. I just missed the CrossFit Games by a point. Like, had I done one more dumbbell snatch in the hundreds chipper, I would be going right now. And I definitely could have done one more dumbbell snatch. But what I realized at that point is that I was disappointed in the result, but I was incredibly happy with my execution and how I handled myself and my effort. And like, what else? I'm not in control of what other people do. I'm only in control of my effort and execution. And so the way I try to set my expectations, I set a effort-based and an execution-based expectation. And as long as I meet those, I end up coming away from these things happy. I also recognize that I'm either the oldest or second oldest person competing in this division. I haven't gone through the entire leaderboard, but I'm 39, and I think there might only be one or two other 39-year-olds that qualified this year. So I also just know that I'm competing against some guys that are younger and some guys that are like truly professionals in the sport. Like, training is all they do. So I recognize there's going to be, I'm probably not going to come in and sweep to the podium, but I'm not going to say that it's not possible for me to fight for a podium spot here. Depends on the events.
Yeah. Two quick questions. One, you're going to be 40 next year. Does that excite you that you'll be the baby then in the next division?
Yeah, just a little bit. I don't want to look too far ahead because I got this, coming up in like 3.5 weeks. But yeah, I'm really excited for the 2025 season when I turn 40.
The other thing is you mentioned like you went back and looked at Legends. All of their workouts had to go through, I think, BOZ to be approved. So as a person that's been around the sport a long time, yeah, Legends did the workouts. They had to be approved by BOZ, and they're probably tweaked at least a little bit. Do you lean more towards like what BOZ's history is, or do you lean more towards Legends?
Man, it's tough. It's tough. I think I would like a blending of the two. What I would like is to get some of the swim and max lift and the structure from Legends, and then get more of the high skill stuff from BOZ. I'd love to see handstand, ramp, and stairs or pirouettes. I would personally love to see things like pegboards and crossover double unders and high skill movements, because those are things that I've taken the time over the last few years to really dial in and perfect. And I don't know how many now a lot of the guys that are in the 35 to 39, they've come up in some of BOZ's programming for the last few years, but I don't know how many other people have spent the time to dial in some of those skills. So if we get some of the high skill stuff and we get some of the max lift and we get a swim, I'd be a really happy CrossFitter. That would make me a really happy guy. If what we see is more, basic fitness testing, similar stuff that you might expect to see in the open or quarterfinals, I'll be challenged. It'll be a challenge for me. It's just, I'm not as good at that as I am the higher skill, heavier and cyclical erg type stuff.
Corey Leonard says, I ain't going there for a haircut. Kyle Ruth probably.
I did just get a very nice haircut. So,
and Jake Chapman says, is it possible to be a Masters athlete if you don't have a beard?
I don't think so. I think you're technically automatically not a Masters athlete if you don't have a beard. And people who have great beards can be honorary Masters athletes if they'd like.
I think the minute you qualify, your hair grows 10 times faster out of your face.
It does. You know, Travis has already got enough white in his beard that I think he should have qualified for Masters like 2 or 3 years ago. But, you know,
it's hard to believe Travis is not a Masters athlete.
Next year.
He's just been around so long.
Next year, he's officially a Masters athlete.
And you'll never have to face him because you'll age up as he ages up.
Thank God, because I trained with him a lot this past year, early in the season and then the last couple of weeks. And I don't think I beat him in anything. Like we've probably done 30 plus workouts together, and I have a total of 0 victories in that space. That's not true. I beat him in 2 swim workouts, but he also beat me in a swim workout. Yeah, it was 1 arm dumbbell shouldered overhead. We had the 70s. And I don't remember the rep scheme, but it was just a 50 swim. So, I remember the rep scheme. It was 10, 8, 6, 4, 2. You do 10 on the left, 10 on the right, and then 50 swim, 8, 8, 6, 6, 4, 4, 2, 2 with a 50 swim after each one. And his shoulder to overhead cycle speed was so fast that I could not catch him in the water. Wow. No matter what. Now, the rest of the swim workouts we've done, I've been able to beat him. But those have been with longer swims, 100s, 150s, 200s, 500s. There's no chance if it's something that short that someone with that cycling speed, the guy was moving a 70 like I move a 50 or a 45-pound dumbbell. It was crazy.
So I'd be remiss to not ask about the athletes from TTT going to the games this week. We're in games week. I have Alexis on the podium in my picks.
That's a good bet.
You like that?
Yes, I think that's a good bet.
Yeah, everything I've seen of her in this offseason leads me to believe that she's in a great headspace and going into the games right at the right moment.
Yeah, I just noticed this on Saturday when I was training there. Like I'm around them a lot. Maybe it was Friday. I don't remember what day it was, but anyway, Travis is still a little bit tired from the move. He did a lot of he did the mats, cutting the mats and mounting the rig and all that stuff. So he was a little tired still on Friday last week, but I saw Alexis and she was literally like bouncing around before a workout and just like, she had so much energy. Like it was clear that her taper was starting to take effect. And, I think she timed it at the right spot. So I think she's going to be hard to beat for most of those women. And
you also have Linda Kiesman going, right?
Yeah. Linda is, I think, a dark horse. Nobody knows her. She's a freshman at the CrossFit Games this year. And I think she's really powerful and really strong. We did this Miko's triangle progression as they kind of like led into the games. And it was kind of like my base building. So even because our timelines aren't exactly the same, but man, she was hitting the same ski calories as me most of the weeks. And I'm like, man, you are one fit chick. I'm in trouble. I'm in trouble in a couple of years. I'm not even going to be able to beat the girls that come on site on the ergs.
And then Travis is going. Anybody else?
We've got Bethany.
Bethany.
Yeah, Bethany. Parent coaches her, and she's. I haven't seen as much as of her because I was actually out of town. We had our family vacation when all the people were in town to do the games prep camp this year, which is kind of sad because I love those games preps weekend. But I haven't seen a lot of her, so it's hard for me to say how she'll compete. And I think the TTT compete team looks like they are in a good place. Like they're all in a great spot. Obviously, they're based on where they finished, they're not necessarily like the top team, with top expectations, but they work well as a team. They've been coached well. They've trained hard together. And I think they'll be able to go out and put on a good show.
One interesting fact about Bethany, she's never been cut.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Every time she's gone to a semifinal or a regional, she's made it to the games and she's never been cut at the games.
That is really impressive. I did not know that.
Yeah. I just had her on the show maybe a week and a half ago. And like, it just always seems like the timing of her health lines up just right. It's always perfect.
Yeah, that's the opposite for most athletes. You know, most athletes, they get 1 or 2 weeks out and they get this mysterious tweak that shows up. And it's always hard to predict when it's going to happen. But I've coached enough people at semifinals and at the games level that it's almost like clockwork. They get these little tweaks. I remember this one year Noah tweaked his pec 2 weeks before the ring dips at semifinals. I don't remember if it was 16 or 18. Another year Noah was in the hospital because of his back right before the CrossFit Games. Some of the athletes, when I coached Josh Miller, when he qualified for the CrossFit Games out of French throwdown, he had this massive knee tweak like 5 days before, and was barely going to be able to squat and all that. And then he went out there and just cleaned house at French throwdown. So it's always these little tweaks that happen just a few days before, and it's kind of nice as a coach that when it happens to me, 5 days out, I'm like, oh, I got a neck tweak. I'm like, oh yeah, this happens to everybody and you're going to be fine.
Well, man, this has gone long, way longer than I anticipated, but as you're just great to talk to. Good luck on your health going into the games. We are going to be in Birmingham. We got full access to do a behind the scenes.
Awesome.
So Ellie Hiller and myself will be back in the back.
Athlete, Ellie.
You coach her?
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. So she lives in Birmingham.
Yep.
So I recruited her to be a part of our team for the Masters Games. Her and I are going to be back with cameras, catching everything that goes on behind the scenes. We're going to have a couple of videographers getting the stuff on the floor, and we're going to put that together in a cool documentary.
Ellie is awesome. She's a fireball. Just be ready. She's got so much energy. She's going to just run circles around everybody there.
She's already put together some reels for us, showing like restaurants and coffee shops and gyms and stuff like that are in Birmingham.
Yeah, good choice. I can just say that you're going to have a ball of energy on your hands there.
Yeah. Well, and she's a great athlete too. And she understands like what it's like to be an athlete. So it's going to give a great perspective.
Hopefully she gives very biased, very colorful, positive feedback for me the entire time.
Yeah, you don't bury her. And when you get to turn around and be her coach again.
She's a workhorse. She would be mad if I wasn't burying her, to be honest.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. She's a good kid. So yeah, we're super excited about that. And don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel. Where we have a ton more of these Masters profiles we're doing, trying to get as many highlights done before the games as possible. So the athletes. So when Sean Woodland calls their name, you know who they are. And I was saying when we lost you for a second, if Sean Woodland called my name, that would be my ringtone.
You said it as your ringtone? I love it. I love it.
Well, thank you, Kyle, for being here. Thank you to everybody in the chat. You guys make it awesome as always. We will see everybody next time on the Clydesdale Media Podcast.
Thanks for having me on.